Parameters are fields that contain values that often change. Parameter fields must have a value before the report can be processed. By using parameters in formulas, selection formulas, and in the report itself, a single report can be created that changes its behavior depending on the values entered. For example, when you print reports in Accpac, you first receive a screen prompting to enter specific criteria, such as a date range, invoice range, or customer range. How the question is answered determines the results of the report. The values entered are stored in what is called a parameter. When designing new reports, parameters can be added prompting for specific values, just like Accpac reports. Earlier, we restricted the report to show only those customers that live in Canada. However, you may also want to print the report for only those customers in the US or any other country. From the Field Explorer, right-click on Parameters and choose New. Enter the parameter name Country. The field type is String because the country code is an alphanumeric field. Crystal Reports allows either static parameters or dynamic parameters. If the report is to automatically display the valid values available in a field, select Dynamic. If the report is to manually enter field values, or possibly select from a list of defaults, then select Static. Dynamic parameters allow Crystal Reports to query database fields. Therefore, reports using them may take longer to display. Static parameters, on the other hand, may display the report faster. However, they require the person printing the report to know the database values to enter. If dynamic parameters are created, it might be better to use them on field types that have minimal data. For example, displaying salesperson codes because there probably are not that many. Although using them to search for customer codes or document numbers can also be done, it may cause the report to refresh slower because there could be hundreds or even thousands of records. For this report, the report only has customers that exist in a handful of countries, so select Dynamic. Then select the field name to be queried, country code in this case. At the bottom of the window, assign the parameter settings. Enter the prompting text so users printing the report know what the field does. Enter something like select the country code. Ascending order is fine. Next, instruct Crystal to prompt with the above description only rather than also the field name. The Allow Multiple Values field can be selected to allow the printing of multiple countries that may or may not be in a range. For example, selecting Canada and countries between India and Japan. Discrete values prompt to select individual records, India, Canada, and Thailand, but not between a range, like Canada through Thailand. Range values allow the entry of data between records, like India through Japan, and or Singapore through Turkey. Because the multiple values option is not selected, this option is set at false. Simply adding the parameter doesn't indicate that it immediately functions. Crystal Reports has to be instructed how to use the parameter. The parameter needs to replace the existing condition that currently restricts the report to print only Canadian customers within the Select Expert section. Within the report menu, choose Select Expert and highlight the country code. The is equal to value is still correct. However, instead of forcing it to only recall Canadian customers, change the value so it references the parameter. Now, when the report is refreshed, a parameter screen appears with the ability to select the country code of choice. Because the parameter is defined as dynamic, the list only displays the countries that exist within the database. Because the report is now dynamic, indicates that the report can be printed over and over using a different country without having to adjust the Select Expert command each time. After numeric values have been placed on a report, Crystal can be programmed to display subtotals and/or grand totals. If the report is being defined using the wizard, one of the sections of the wizard prompts to generate totals automatically. If numeric fields are added to the report afterwards, or if new formulas are added that result in a number, totals can be created at any time. Although inserting totals can be performed from either the Design tab or Preview tab, you may find the process easier from the Design tab. To generate an invoice total, by customer for example, select the Amount field. Right-click and choose Insert Summary. A screen appears prompting to select the field and summary type. Expanding the Summary Location box, select to generate a sum based on one of the groups and/or grand total. Let's select the customer group, Group 2. Refreshing the report, the total amount of invoices for each customer is displayed. If a grand total is also wanted, in other words, a total of all customer invoices for all countries, select the Amount Database field again. Right-click and choose Insert Summary. But this time, select Grand Total. This places the total within the report footer section. To add a line above the total amount, right-click on the field and select Format Field. Proceed to the Border tab and indicate a single line at the top of the field. Previewing the report again and selecting the last page, the grand total appears with a line above the amount. Running totals display the total of a field as Crystal proceeds through the data. For example, possibly you want to track the daily balance in your bank account, showing a higher balance as receipts get posted and a lower balance as payments are made. Or possibly you want to add a column on the customer statement showing the running balance as customers purchase new items and submit payments. To create a running total formula, select the Field Explorer and right-click on Running Total Fields. Crystal automatically names the field, but it can be changed. Then determine how the running total field functions. Let's use the example where you want the running balance of the customer to print as invoices get posted. The first decision that needs to be made is to determine which field to be summarized. Assume you want to track the invoice amount. Then select the field value to use. Sum is the default, however there are several others to select from. Probably the most common command for use with Accpac is sum. This will add the amounts as Crystal progresses through the data. Minimum, maximum, where Crystal tracks the lowest or highest amount within the range that gets printed, and count, which adds the number of documents the system finds, are also commonly used with Accpac. In the case of creating a total value, select Sum. Next, determine what to evaluate. In most cases, the default to evaluate every record is sufficient. However, any of the records can be selected and evaluated, such as selecting those customers that are higher or lower than a certain value. And then select when the running total is to reset. In this case, it needs to reset to 0 when the customer number changes. The last step is to place the running total field on the report. Earlier, the report was sorted to print documents in ascending order, from lowest to highest. If the sort criteria is changed, the fields appear using the new criteria. Thus, the running total matches the order the fields appear. Let's change the sort order by removing the ascending amount sort. Refreshing the report, the running total matches how the data appears. Possibly a better sort option for this report is based on document date. So let's change that. Returning to the report preview screen, the running balance of the customer over the course of time is shown. Crystal reports can also produce a graph of the data so the information can be seen visually. Although graphing data can add another dimension to the report will operate slower. Use this feature sparingly, particularly with the complexity of most Accpac reports. When adding a graph to the report, it's best to perform the procedure from the Design tab. The first step is to determine which section the graph is to appear. Be careful because the graph needs to be in a section that is equal to or lower than the section where the data for the graph gets calculated. Let's say you want to graph the separate invoice amounts for each customer. This particular graph will probably be best placed within the Group Footer 2 section. Because there are totals already printing in that section, place the graph below the totals or create a second occurrence of Group Footer 2. Let's create a second occurrence. With the cursor hovering over the Group Footer 2 section in the gray area, right-click and select Insert Section below. This creates a Group Footer 2B section where the original Group Footer 2 section becomes 2A. Make the section a little larger to accommodate the graph. Then click the chart icon or select Insert Chart. Crystal displays an orange square attached to the mouse. Drop the square within the Group Footer 2B section that was just created. This displays the chart wizard. The first decision to make is determine when the chart values change. Select by invoice number. Then determine which values to show. To stay consistent with the example, select the amount of the invoice, and then click OK. When the report is previewed, each colored bar on the chart represents each customer invoice, and the height of the bar corresponds to the amount of the invoice. To title or change the characteristics of the chart, highlight the chart from the Design tab, right-click, and select Chart Options. Then select the appropriate tab. The chart type can also be changed. Possibly a pie chart represents the data better. Save the changes and preview the report again. Throughout the report creation process, it's a good idea to save the report often. Let's save the report one last final time.
Please proceed to editing existing Accpac reports.